Alright, welcome back guys. As you guys can see in front of you, on this top row I have the bricks that I showed you guys how to carve out and make a tool to make the bricks sunk in. And the bottom row, these are the bricks I showed you guys how to weather and what tools you guys could use to make it look damaged. And in this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to add texture to these before you paint them. So there's a couple things that people use to texture their bricks. I'm going to move these out of the way and then I'll show you guys exactly the different things that you guys could use. So the first thing people use or recommend is, because it's so easy to find, you could go outside and find a broken brick or a piece of concrete. That's as simple as it gets for that one. This is really good because it has uneven edges, so it gives you a really random texture, which is always good. Just a basic rock. You could do small texturing with this. You could even roll it around on your foam. Another thing that's really easy to find in your household is tin foil. You could just wad it up, and this has really good divots in it as well. And there's also, you could also use really rough grit sandpaper. This is also really good for certain types of bricks. And one of the things I also like using is I make these little swatches out of cardstock and some hot glue and some like gravel. And the good thing about these is you can make a really fine one, so you could have like a fine grit one, you could have a really rough one, you could just add different sand grits on here, so you could have different ones for anything that you need. So those are pretty much what I have. As always, anything that I use in this video, there's going to be pictures at the end, and we're going to go through each of these and texture those pieces that you saw in the very beginning and see how well they do and what kind of textures you guys actually get. And don't forget, my next video that's coming up, we're going to actually paint these so you guys can see those textures really pop. So we're just going to jump into the first option that we have for texturing. We have our damaged wall here. I really like using this for these type of walls because it really gives it a really beat up look. So that was the first thing that I showed you guys, was just a piece of concrete. And it's just simple. You just press it on there how you like it. And of course you could go heavy on these damaged walls because it'll just make it look more battered. You could turn your broken piece of concrete or brick around so you could get different types of indentations. And let's get a close-up on that. As you can see, it gives it that really beat up look. I really like it for damaged walls. Now let's move on to the next one. We have another damaged wall right here, and I like using tin foil for these because these have really random divots in it as well. And so you could press down, and if you don't like how it's coming out, you can actually, since it's a ball, you could just roll it around, and that really gives you some random textures in there. And this is a more fine like look, like the actual wrinkles in it. Alright, that's the tin foil. I like this rock. I like using the small rocks because I do have a small workspace. I can't have like a giant brick, it takes up room on there. So the way I use this is you could use it if it has rough edges. You could just selectively choose where you want it, or you could also roll it around, and it does give like bigger divots, small divots in there. You get a really good mixture of textures in there. And then you can even get the edge of your rock and kind of jab them into bricks and make them really look really worn. Let's get a close-up of that one. This one's more subtle compared to the other ones. Moving on to the regular one, if you just have regular bricks, I really recommend, like, if you're making them look more pristine and more clean, you could get that sandpaper I told you. This is, I believe, 50 grit, if I remember right. And you could attach it to a wooden block. Right now the one I use, it's really damaged a lot because I use it a lot, so I didn't have a chance to put this on a wooden block. But you could put it on top of your wall, and then you could just press down. And this gives really fine texture to it. So if you're looking for just small texture, not really battle damage, you could use this. And as you can see, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but there's little tiny divots everywhere. And of course, the harder you press down or the rougher grit that you use, you'll get different textures. You could also use a fine grit if you want to do sandstone, which I like using the sandpaper for. Let's see if I could get that on camera. Yeah, you can see they're like little divots. And the other one I like using, especially if I'm being very selective on where I want my texture or how deep I want the texture, I like using my my thumb texturing tool that I make. So I could just choose random spots. Of course, you wouldn't use this to texture a whole wall, but you could make little tiny spots. You could be really selective, like, oh, okay, this part of the wall is damaged, but the rest is pretty pristine. So I really like this tool a lot. Just have it sitting around. I have like different piles of these of different grits on here. And as you can see, you could really choose where you want that texture. And the last one, you could use, I don't have it here because it's really messy, but you could use cat litter, and you could just put the cat litter on there and then just press it down. You can also just grab regular play sand from Lowe's or Home Depot, or even sand from outside. It usually has different types of rocks and pebbles in there, so it'll give you really unique texture on there. It would have like deep divots and then smaller divots. That one's pretty good, but it does get messy. And like I said, I have a small workspace, so I don't like using something that's going to require a lot of cleanup. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys for texturing. Let's get all the pieces in here so you can kind of compare all the different texturing. You can see the differences, the subtle differences on all of them. I really suggest trying all these out and finding what you prefer. I like using a combination of these things. But remember, as always, guys, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and hit that sexy subscribe button. Oops. And this one's in the bottom row. Fuck. Already.